Vivek Ramaswamy ain't doing too hot. While relative to what he was before the campaign, which is a unknown, known for mostly his work in the pharmaceutical industry and some scandals along with it, he is now more known before that. People who watch the debate certainly know who he is. He talks quite enough to make sure that his name is known for anybody who watched the debate, and he was able to raise his polling numbers from 0%, since he was a relative unknown, to about 4 to 5%. But going any further than that has been a problem for Ramaswamy, outside of some isolated polls that, you know, could easily be considered outliers. And so Ramaswamy, as he continues to attend the debates, as he continues to campaign, as he hosts CNN town halls, and he goes out there and pitches his message time after time after time after time on the debate stage in front of millions of people and across the country, he's gotten stuck. His RCP average numbers are not skyrocketing. He's still around like 5%, 6%. In fact, in many of the key early states like Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina, Vivek Ramaswamy is not only not in second place or third place, I mean, he's down in fourth and fifth place. Not doing great, not doing too hot. In fact, in some New Hampshire polls, Vivek Ramaswamy is ranked under Chris Christie, the person who is running for president, not to necessarily even become president, even though I'm sure he wants the job, but to just kind of be a revenge torpedo kamikaze attack against Donald Trump's campaign. So not doing too good. One second. Let's look up the RCP Republican primary average, so you guys have an idea. See, it's Trump, then it's DeSantis, then it's Haley, and then down way in the fourth is Ramaswamy at 4%, almost tied with Chris Christie. Chris Christie and Ramaswamy in the RCP average are polling basically next to each other, meaning that the Trump sycophant and Trump's main critic are generally polling at the same numbers, as Haley and DeSantis jostle for that second spot, as Haley takes the lead, a very big lead, in key states like New Hampshire. So Ramaswamy, as he sees the numbers, as he sees multiple debate performances, and debate being his kind of podcast campaign, which was a lot of the core of his campaign was these online appearances on alternative media platforms, as his podcast campaign, based with no expertise in legislating, based with nobody in Washington who has experience with passing laws, with no political experience of himself, of his own, this campaign is starting to collapse in on itself. And when I say collapse in on itself, I mean as it is stagnated, and Nikki Haley, someone that Vivek Ramaswamy tried to lunge after in order to throw himself up in the poll numbers, is now curb stomping him in many of the key early states, and he's down in fourth place. He has decided to reel in the spending of his campaign, with Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign stopping all TV ad spending less than a month before Iowa and New Hampshire. It's over. I mean, it's over, man. If you're a month out from campaign day, from election day, a month out from election day in Iowa and New Hampshire, and I want to remind you guys, the victory for Pete Buttigieg in Iowa in 2020 propelled him 12 to 14 point jumps in states like New Hampshire, meaning he almost won New Hampshire while going up against Bernie. He lost by like 5, 6, 7 points. But nobody would have thought he was going to do that well in New Hampshire. Nobody thought he was going to do that well in Iowa. But winning in those early states can propel you forward eventually to take the presidency. That's how Jimmy Carter became president. And it's still a viable path to president. Bernie Sanders tried to use it as well. Other presidential candidates have tried to use it. And Vivek Ramaswamy does not have that path open for him. And so Vivek Ramaswamy, somebody who has no experience in politics, no deep connections in politics, who has been able to reach these polling numbers, not through saying, hey, look at the results of what I've done in the past, but by throwing out bright new Silicon Valley ideas. And when I say bright new Silicon Valley ideas, what I mean is he came in, and I haven't just said this for him, but so he isn't the only person guilty of this, but he is one of the main culprits, is that he has a very like Silicon Valley mentality as somebody who attacks, the California liberal very much. And what I mean by that is he just kind of throws anything at the wall to see what sticks. He's not only does he throw anything at the wall to see what sticks, he's just kind of like throwing like idea after idea. And if it fails in Silicon Valley, if a venture fails, if one of these business ideas fail, well, that's capitalism. The majority of restaurants fail. The majority of, new inventions fail. All the like 90% of it goes under. But you can't do that with the country. And so when you're making new bright idea proposals like, how about we abandon Ukraine for the hope that the Russians will not align themselves with the Chinese, or you're throwing out ideas like we're going to fire 75% of government officials and we're going to do it by raffle, meaning, you can have, certain things like nuclear regulatory agencies lose like tons and tons and tons of their employees, but then other government agencies lose less of their employees. And would they be losing their jobs based upon the quality of their work? No, they would be losing their job completely at random, meaning you could kick off people who have 30 to 40 years of experience in nuclear regulatory, just keeping, nuclear power plants and other things working, and instead keep the 2-year inexperienced person who's not that dedicated to the job and takes, and every moment he can, like, steps away to like smoke pot. You have no clue because you're doing it at random. These aren't like serious proposals. These are conversation starters so he can go on podcasts and push himself. And that's why he's trying to, as he sees the writing on the wall, become more and more and more of a diehard Trump sycophant. Because he knows that the writing's on the wall, he's not going to win. He's not fighting to win anymore. If you stop your TV ads a month before Iowa and New Hampshire, you've tapped out. You quit. He's not going to be president. He knows that. So instead, he has been trying to align himself with Trump to the best of his ability, critique him basically never, say he's the best president of the United States ever, and get on his good side. Now, there's been a problem with that strategy, though. If on one hand you're saying that this other candidate was the best president of the United States, he's great in all these ways, he's gonna, he's fixed the country, he's great, and you're praising him like super hard, why are you running against him? If I said I'm gonna run against the best politician ever who's done the best things ever for our country, that just sounds like an ad for the other guy. Why would you run against the best president ever? He's the best president ever. And you're just some pharmaceutical business guy. If he's the best president ever, how can you come up to snuff? And so like that marketing problem was something his campaign just could not overcome. How do you run against the best president ever? You can't. He's the best president ever, especially if you also don't only think, but openly acknowledge that he's the best president ever. So I think the more and more he does that is the more and is more and more likely that he's trying to position for some sort of Trump administration position. Now, some people are saying VP, and that could be an option, but I think it would be a really stupid option for the Trump campaign. And now that's not to say that Trump can't make a stupid decision, but a wiser decision would be somebody politically, now this isn't going to make Trump's base happy, like Nikki Haley, somebody that can make more maybe centrist or moderate people feel more comfortable with him because she has some tie to that old style of the Republican Party. It can help bring in that part of the Republican Party under Trump's wing even further. Now, there's a bunch of problems with picking Nikki Haley. Number one, she's surging right now. She's probably not going to cave while she's surging. She disagrees with Trump on some pretty key issues, notably national security issues, and being somebody who was UN ambassador and is concentrating on foreign policy issues. That's going to be a pretty big sticking point. It's kind of hard to see her shifting on that in the immediate future. But I'm just throwing that out there. The reason I'm throwing that out there is because Ramaswamy would not be a smart option. Everybody that's voting for Ramaswamy is going to vote for Donald Trump. He wins nobody over to Trump. And his crazy radical rhetoric would just make the campaign around Trump more radical and not moderate towards the people who think that their party's some radical, abortion banning, Bible thumping, theocratic, wannabe dictators. And that this image is not going to be helped by picking someone like Vivek Ramaswamy. It doesn't help him at all. But Vivek Ramaswamy would still, of course, want it because power. But he could also aim for a different position, like some sort of, regulatory position, head of some department, maybe like trade and commerce. You get the idea. He can try to position himself like Pete Buttigieg did to make him transportation secretary, even though he didn't have much experience in transportation outside of probably doing some public transport policy for the old city in Iowa that he ran. So that's probably what Vivek Ramaswamy is aiming for at this point, because this right here, to me, says that whether or not the numbers were not in it for him, and the math wasn't there, and it's been like that for quite a while, this to me is like the official tap out for Vivek Ramaswamy. Whether or not he announces he's resigning the next week, or he's pulling out in the next week, next month, or who knows, or before the first primary date. Either way, he's going to pull out, probably then going to endorse Trump, and then do his best to, get on his best side so he can get those appointments. Whether or not he achieves it, I don't know. Trump does have a record of kind of leaving people high and dry.